things I wanted to discuss with you is the impact of COVID and the lockdown and the economic devastation on our poor people, and how we should be thinking about it. I mean, we've had in India for some time a policy framework, particularly when we were in the UPA, of providing a sort of a floor for poor people, Narega, right to food, etc. And now a lot of that work is going to sort of fall by the wayside because we have this disease coming, and millions and millions of people are going to fall back into poverty. So this is something, I mean, how should one think about this?
Right. So I think that these are kind of separable in my view, in the sense that I think that the real problem in the very short run is that these, I think, more policies, good policies put in place by the UPA are inadequate. And the government, in a sense, absolutely embraced them. I mean, it was not that there was a particular partisan disagreement there. There was very clear that the UPA instruments will be used for doing whatever it is. I think what is harder to wrap one's head around is what do you do about the people who are not covered by that? And that's a lot of people, the migrants in particular. One of the ideas that was mooted, I think, in the last years of the UPA, but also embraced by the current government, was the idea that the Aadhaar would be made national and therefore would be used for PDS and other things. So the Aadhaar-based claims on PDS would be eligible. You would be eligible for it wherever you are, and that would have been wonderful to have that right now. Sort of looking back, I would say that would have saved a lot of misery, because I think a lot of people would have then gone to the local ration shop and said, "Here's my Aadhaar. I'm eligible for PDS. I'm collecting PDS in Mumbai, even though my family resides in Malda or Darbhanga or whatever. That's my claim." And so I think the fact that that didn't happen means that there's a bunch of people for whom there isn't really a system. Mm-hmm. And they are eligible to Narega because they're in Bombay, and there's no Narega in Bombay. They're not eligible for PDS because they're not actually residents. Part of the problem in this very short run is that the conceptualization of the welfare structure was based on the idea that anybody who's really not in where they're supposed to be is actually working and is earning an income, and therefore we don't have to worry about them. And that's what's collapsed. And then the question of poverty, it's not obvious to me that if the economy revives, there needs to be a durable effect on poverty. The real concerns are, will the economy revive? And in particular, how does one think through the possible time paths of this disease through that process? I think we should try to be optimistic about the survival of the overall economic well-being of the country.
But a lot of
the right actions.
A lot of these people, they get their jobs from sort of small and medium businesses who are going to have a sort of cash flow problem, and a lot of those businesses are going to go bankrupt because of the shock. So there is also a link between the economic damage that is going to come to those businessmen and the ability of these people to maintain a job.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the reason why a lot of us have been saying that we need a stimulus package. Mm-hmm. That's what the US is doing. That's what Japan is doing. That's what Europe is doing. We really haven't decided on a large enough stimulus package. We're still talking about 1% of GDP or something. The US has gone for 10% of GDP. But there's a sense in which I think we have to, the MSME sector, mostly we have done one thing that I think is wise, which is to kind of put a moratorium on debt payments. I would say we could do more than that. We could even say that the debt payments for this quarter will be cancelled and will be taken care of by the government. that, so we could do a bit more than that, so that you don't actually have to pay for a quarter where you never pay. It's not just a matter of rescheduling it, just permanently cancel it. We could do that, but beyond that, I think it's not clear that targeting the MSME sector is the right channel. It's more reviving demand, giving money in the hands of everybody so that they go buy in the stores or they buy consumer goods. The MSME sector produces a bunch of stuff that people will want. They've been not buying things. So if they had money, or even if you promise them money, it doesn't have to be that the money is right now. If you're in the red zone, you could say, look, whenever it's lifted, we'll have money in your account. You'll have 10,000 rupees in your account and you can spend it. I think spending is the easiest way to revive the economy, because then the MSME people, they get money, they spend it. It sort of has the usual Keynesian chain reaction.
So we are talking about some version of Nyay, or a direct cash transfer to the poorest people.
Absolutely, a direct cash transfer. Whether it's to the poorest people, that's more debatable. I would argue for a broader, because I think targeting is extremely costly.
Yeah,
you try to target in this mess. You try to target and figure out who's become poor after their shop was shut for 6 weeks. I don't know whether how we figure this out. I wouldn't try to figure it out. I would say, bottom 60% of the population, we give them some money. Nothing bad will happen, in my view. That if we gave them some money, well, some of them will not need it, but fine, they'll spend it. And if they spend it, that will have stimulus effect. So the only place where maybe I'm more aggressive than you are in that sentence is that I think I would go beyond the point in taking that decision.
The other thing that is slightly different in India is that the food issue and the scale of the food issue.
Yeah.
So we have large numbers of people who don't have ration cards. There's an argument being made, just hand out what is in the godams, because it's going to get more and more full as the harvests come in. So just move aggressively on that. What do you think of that?
We in fact wrote an op-ed with Raghu, Rajan and Amartya Sen saying literally that, which is hand out temporary ration cards to anybody who wants one. In fact, put all other ration cards in abeyance. Just put temporary, anybody wants one, and it's a temporary ration card, lasts for 3 months for now, and maybe renewed for another 3 months if necessary, and honor that. So give everybody a ration card. Anybody walks in, give them one, and use that as the basis for making transfers. I think we have enough stocks. We can keep going for a while. The Rabi crop has been good this time, so we're going to have tons of wheat and rice. So at least wheat and rice we can keep giving out. I don't know whether we have enough dal or not, but I think that the government promised dal as well, and so hopefully we have enough dal and oil and cooking oil. But yes, absolutely, we can definitely do that, and should really do that. Give out temporary ration cards to everybody.
And what else would you think should be on the sort of the package that the government is thinking about? I mean, we've spoken about small and medium. We've spoken about migrant labor, about the food issue. Any other things that you feel should be on that?
I think the last piece of this is just, I think, for the people who, to get cash to people, we really need some machinery. We can't really get cash to people. And people who have the Jan Dhan accounts, they can get the money, but many people don't. And especially, migrants may not have the access to that, etc. So I think we want to also think about what happens to the substantial part of the population that doesn't have access to these things. And probably the right answer is that we should give a bunch of money available to the state governments to try out their own schemes, to be creative in reaching people who are excluded and using NGOs. I think that we have to be willing to take some amount of, mistargeting, malfeasance, some money will be stolen. But I think if we sit on our hands and say that, we don't want to do anything that's going to possibly go wrong, then I think we'll make sure it goes wrong.
You see this thing playing out, once the disease washes out 6 months from now, from the poverty aspect. I mean, there's obviously going to be a backlash, economic backlash. There's going to be bankruptcies. How do we sort of think of it in the medium term as opposed to the immediate short term?
Right, so that's sort of what we were talking about a little bit before, which is this question of I think a demand shortfall. I think that's the. I mean, there are two concerns. One is how to avoid a chain of bankruptcies, and I think maybe writing off a lot of debt is the way to avoid that, as you had mentioned. And the other one is a demand shortfall. And getting some cash into the hands of the population is the best way to kickstart the economy. The US is very aggressively doing that. And this is a Republican administration run by a bunch of financiers, in fact, and they are willing to do it where we should be willing. I mean, this is not run by like a bunch of socially minded liberals. It's run by people who used to work in the financial sector, but they've decided that just for economic survival of the economy, we need to pump money into people's hands. And I think we should take a cue from that.
This is also changing the sort of balance of power in the world to an extent. That is also pretty clear. How do you think about that?
I think that both of them are right. I'm very worried for countries like France and Italy, which especially Italy, I think had a fairly disastrous outcome, and partly that's a result of the state being the Italian state has been run by, really, not very, let's say, distinguished people for a while, and as a result, it's sort of the health system was on the last legs when this hit. The US moving much more in a nationalist direction is extremely frightening for the world, for the rise of China being a threat, but if the US starts reacting to it, it could be an extremely destabilizing threat. So I think that's something to worry about a lot.
The undercurrent is that strong leaders can take on this virus. What is being sold is that it requires one man to charge into, against the virus. That's really the problem.
That has been disastrous, as we know. I mean, the US and Brazil are two countries which are just messing up right and left, and these are two quote-unquote strong men behaving like they pretending that they understand anything, but even what they say every day is kind of laughable. So we have this. If anybody wanted to believe in the strongman theory, this is the time to disabuse them themselves.
Thank you very much.